Okay, good evening and welcome to Iyun with Benzion. Today's daf is, actually yesterday's daf was Yevamos Peitet, number 89. I want to talk about something very interesting over here. The Gemara, in relation to our Mishnah about Mamzerim, brings in a seemingly unrelated discussion about being Torah Minaral Yafer or Tamei al Tor, meaning if I'm a Yisrael and I want to take a Truma, so I want to get out of it easy, so I have Tamei produce. I'll take the Tamei produce and use it to give to the Kohen, and I'll pater my Torah produce. I don't want Tamei food. And similarly, like the Bright, there's a Mishnah in Masechtas Trumos that says that you take off cucumbers, you take off watermelons as your truma, and you realize that it's rotten inside. So there's different halachas that apply in these cases. So in the first case, when you're Torah min atamei al ator, if you do it b'shogeg, truma so truma. I'm reading in the middle of Peitet Amud Aleph. And if you did it by mazid, you did intentionally, you knew it was tamei, and you took it off anyway, which hurts the Kohen, because if it's tmeya, you can only use it for fuel in his fire. You can't eat it. But he made the loss of a local. It doesn't take effect. So what does it mean, loss of a local? So there's two opinions. Rav Chisda says it's ineffective completely, meaning basically it doesn't become truma at all. It's still tevel, and you have to take off truma again. Nassim Bar Shaya says it is effective. It's just not effective to misak in the shirayim. You have to go ahead and take off more truma to fix your shirayim. Now, the Gemara is not yet introduced Rabbi Eli. Rabbi Eli is a shita, new chiddush. The Gemara introduced on Peitet Amud Beis. The Gemara assumes at this point we don't know about Rabbi Eli. Rabbi Eli says a chiddush on Peitet Amud Beis, B'nayim l'Torah min ha'ira yafesh trumata truma. That if you take off bad stuff, to take off truma from good stuff, to pater your good stuff, to exempt your good stuff, it still works. So the Gemara, and that's a chiddush the Gemara learned. So at this point, we're assuming in the Peitet Amud Aleph that it doesn't work. Midoraisa doesn't work. So when we say trumato, b'shogig trumato truma, it has to mean it doesn't work min Torah. But it counts as truma. Well, it's problematic. I mean, it is problematic. We haven't really dealt with this yet, but the point is that we haven't really introduced this yet. So, in the case of Mazid, at least, where we say loss of a low klum, there I would assume both Rav Chisda and Nassim Bar Shaya are saying, Rav Chisda is saying loss of a low klum at all, and even on the side of Bar Shaya it says loss of a low klum, it's considered truma, maybe truma d'Rabbanan, right? And even maybe a shogeg is considered truma d'Rabbanan. But it's not truma midoraisa. Everyone agree midoraisa. It's not considered a truma. You have to take off another truma again. And that's part of it's mashma in the Gemara. The reason Rav Chisda says not truma because he's worried that according to Nassim Bar Shaya, you're not going to take off truma again. You're going to be left with tevel, right? So the only machlok is in Rav Chisda and Nassim Bar Shaya is whether it's truma d'Rabbanan, and shogeg also we assume it's truma d'Rabbanan. But midoraisa, everyone would agree you have to take off truma again. That's what the Gemara is assuming. I think what the Gemara is assuming until now. And then the Gemara asks the difference between the case of watermelon and cucumbers, where it's bad, where it's rotten stuff, versus truma tmeya. And the Gemara says we're more machmir when it comes to the shogeg of the cucumbers and the watermelons, because you should have tasted it. Now, what does it mean you should have tasted it? It's tevel. You're not allowed to eat tevel. Maybe you should have fed it to the Kohen. It's hard to understand this Gemara. Therefore, maybe it means you should have fed it to the Kohen. But I believe at the end the Gemara is machadish. I think it's a chiddush on Peitet Amud Beis. Rabbi Eli's din, which is a chiddush that even midoraisa works. That if you're Torah Minaral Yafa, which includes both when it's rotten and when it's tmeya, which includes mashma Gemara includes both cases. It's machadish. The truma is it's a good truma. So once we said it's a good truma midoraisa, right? And the Gemara proves it in the Siyas Chet Lama, right? You have a chet, right? It must be effective. It was effective truma, but now You're carrying a sin because you did something wrong. So it must be it was effective. So now we have to go back to the original question. What's the difference between the case of shogig, when you took off tmeil tahora, trumas or truma? That's undisputed. Trumas or truma, it's a good truma. You don't have to go take another truma off. In the case of cucumbers and watermelon, when it's rotten, ra layafa, really literally ra layafa, it's bad on good. In that case, it's truma, but you have to go give the kohen, you have to repay the kohen. Why in the case of that case you have to repay the kohen by shogeg? So it's not merely shogeg to mezid, it's the rabbanas. Here I think we have to introduce a new reason. I like to say it's just like this, that when it's truma tmeya, so when you gave it to the kohen, it's not worthless completely. It's a hefsed muat, meaning if it's tahora, truma tahora, he's allowed to eat it. If it's truma tmeya, it's not worthless to the kohen. He could use it to fuel his fire, to put it underneath his fire. It's oil to fuel his fire. I guess if it's wheat, you could use it as fuel for your fire. The straw, so you can burn it, so it's fuel for your fire. It's a hefsed muat. It's not a hefsed maruba. You're not completely losing the value of it. When you take rotten cucumbers and rotten watermelon and you give it to the kohen as truma, so it's completely worthless. You're giving him cucumbers and watermelon. These are things that are not used as not going to be valuable to fuel your fire. It's hefsed maruba, and that's what the pasuk means, right? Lo tisu alav chet barimchem eschal b'menu v'yemen kodesh nesias chet lama. It says tisu alav chet. You're carrying a sin. What do you mean you're carrying a sin? If you're carrying something, you don't want to carry something forever. You have to unburden it. Meaning you committed a sin, right? It's effective. Your truma is effective, but within a mominus, you owe the kohen because you're mafsidim, you're mazikim. Have some maruba, you're mazikim. He can't use those cucumbers and watermelons. Therefore, you have to give him midaraisa. Torah is saying nesias chet. You have to pay him back. Not within a truma, within a mominus. You owe him money. You're mazikim, but if you only have some muah, truma tmeya, so therefore, as Torah is not in a makbid on hefsed muah, a little bit of financial loss Torah wasn't makbid on, that nezek the Torah does not make you repay. And that would be the difference between mamish raw, where it's rotten, and truma tmeya. I think this is the difference, lamaskana and the Gemara, the difference between hefsed muah, and that bears out. If you ever know where the Gemara is machalik, hefsed muruba chashashu, hefsed muah lo chashashu, the Rabbanan were more worried by a major loss as opposed to a minor loss. This is the source. He's carrying a burden. He has to pay it off. See you next year.